Okay, so today is the next day, and I guess I was wrong on the date. It's actually May 19th of 24 today. Um, Changed the oil for the first time yesterday on this compressor, and I ran it for, what, 6 hours yesterday? And the oil turned very dark, very quick, which I suppose makes perfect sense. It's not coming through on the camera. Where the shit? There's some aeration in there because I had tipped it over to drain some shit out of its red because I put coolant in it in the wintertime. Anyways, ran it for 6 hours yesterday. Ran fine. Didn't sound any different or whatever. And but it looked really dirty today, which I suppose makes perfect sense. Air compressor oil doesn't have any detergents in it, because the idea is on a compressor like this that doesn't have a filter, that doesn't have an oil filter, that you kind of want all the shit to settle out on the bottom. I think that's really stupid. I wish everything would come with an oil filter, and putting the detergent engine oil in there, it makes sense that it would knock all that shit loose and the oil would turn dark very quickly. And I can't get it on video worth of shit, but looked in through the fill hole there, and sure enough, there's kind of like a layer of slime, sludge, whatever you want to call it, on the bottom. And so if that's getting picked up and cleaned up, then that makes sense for why it turned dirty so quickly. But this little compressor, I'm not going to bother adding a oil filter to. To be perfectly honest, I'm kind of hoping that that compressor dies because it's ridiculous that it's survived this long. And I've got other compressors like this one here that I would like to put into service. And this one I have a new plan for nowadays, but I want to see how long that little Harbor Freight want to go. But anyways, this here is a Champion R15. This one here does not have a oil pump or an oil filter on it. They do offer a pressure lubricated version of this pump that has, pressure lube, but also a spin-on filter called the PL15. Sadly, I don't have any of the pressure lubricated champions. I have three splash lubricated champions. But what I want to do is play around with adding a oil pump and oil filter to these compressors, for the reason of wanting to extend the life of them as much as possible. Modern lubricants, like modern good quality synthetic lubricants, are actually very good, and they don't break down chemically nearly as much as the old oils did. And so, yeah, I don't know where it is. Somewhere on here. Actually, what does this say for oil? Oh, use SAE motor oil type ML only in compressor. Lubricate motor bearings every 20 days. Oh, drain crankcase oil every 500 hours. I actually thought it was less than that. I thought it said less. I've actually been changing it every 100 hours, because of the fact that it gets contaminated. But yeah, modern oils are very, very good. The issue with something like this that doesn't have an oil filter on it is not that the oil necessarily breaks down, but it gets contaminated. And so I'm going to fart around with a couple ideas of adding a little oil pump. And yes, I know this is a fuel pump, but I'm curious to see how it'll circulate oil through a filter. And kind of convenient that it's already got this dimple here. Maybe I could just drill that out and put in like the suction side of the oil here, and then maybe just return here or something. This one does have the low oil shutdown on it, so maybe I could return over there. There is a line that goes up top there. But yeah, anyways, want to extend the life of these things. This compressor here is from 1969. And they sure don't make them like they used to anymore. 1969. Champion is still very, very good, but these older tanks and what have you are much thicker and what have you. If I ever go to buy, if I ever purchase for retail price another compressor again, um, I personally am going to get a Champion pressure lube pump. I've been very, very happy with the Champions that I have. Parts and service in my area are fantastic. And Champion actually doesn't change their design very much over the years. They stay relatively the same. So that part's really cool. But for the ones that I already have, I want to add oil filtration to. And it's possible, but it's a shitload of work and a shitload of money to convert these to the pressure lube when you have to change basically everything. Um, like the crankcase and the cylinder jug would stay the same. Just about everything else changes. I'm sure pistons would stay the same, but crank connecting rods, adding the oil pump, yada yada yada, all that kind of stuff would change. But I do have one pressure lube compressor, which is a Quincy qp7.5, if I'm not mistaken. You probably can't read the tag anymore. But anyways, it is a Quincy two-stage compressor with sure shit, a little oil pump and a little oil filter on it. And I was thinking that for this application where I filtered oil, that it would actually make perfect sense to run a detergent oil in it to try and knock loose any of the shit that's building up in the crankcase and trap it in the filter. This filter that's on this one here is a Baldwin B474 or 747, one of the two, I can't remember. But I think it's a 5 micron absolute, if I'm not mistaken. It's actually a very tight oil filter. And so to me, it makes sense that you would want to put a detergent oil in it, suspend any contamination in the oil, and then trap it in the filter. And then I also have the filter magnet on top of here to trap any ferrous material. And so this is another oil filter that had the filter magnets on it. They're half round magnets that snap around the oil filter. This one here came off my Kubota, and it actually looks, yeah, the camera kind of makes it look a little worse than it is, but it holds magnetic material on the inside of the filter can, which is great for getting a inspection on things and what have you. For instance, unfortunately, this is the one off of one of my pickups, and you can see it doesn't have the magnets on it still, but it actually still holds the material on the side of the filter there. And this is great because this gives you warning. The pickup engine that filter came off of, it still sounds fine, it still runs fine, and what have you. If it wasn't for the magnets, you damn near wouldn't know that anything was different. I just sent off an oil sample, and I'm still waiting to hear back from that, and curious to see what that says. But now I can start planning to put an engine in that pickup rather than have it just crap out of me. But getting back to the point here, I was reading around online last night and on all sorts of forums and what have you, and basically everybody says not to use detergent oil in an air compressor. The reason that is cited a lot of the time is that having detergent oil will cause carbon buildup on the valves. That doesn't make a lick of sense to me whatso freaking ever. I can't fathom how having a detergent oil would lead to carbon buildup on the valves. They do say that air compressors run hotter than internal combustion engines, and I don't know that I buy that either. Especially if you're considering like an air-cooled engine, I don't think that that's a deal. I haven't done any proper testing on it and what have you, so this is just kind of like speculation and guessing on my part. But what I was thinking about is like truck engine compressors. Of course, don't take a separate oil bath at least on the ones that I've seen anyways. I'm sure there's an example out there that does. Most truck engine air compressors run off of the same oil sump that the engine does, so they're being lubricated by detergent engine oil. They have filters on them because the engine's got an oil filter on it. And granted, I think every vehicle mounted like air brake compressor that I've seen has always had a liquid cooled head on it, so it's got like antifreeze running into the head. That could be an argument for the head running cooler and then not building up deposits on the valves. I've always figured that the reason that they do that is because, you know, there's not very much, well, there's no cool airflow underneath the hood, and so you couldn't have a air-cooled compressor. And also, too, if you got an engine with antifreeze running through it, why not just use that to cool the compressor? But so I'm going to put Shell T6 1540 in that Quincy compressor, and change the filter and cut open the filter now, and then run it for a couple hours and see what it looks like, and see how that goes. We are rolling into summer around here, so it's going to run really hot, just because ambient temperatures are going to be really high. But yeah, I don't know if anybody has, you know, thoughts, opinions, whatever, or can point me in a direction of some information on this. I would sure be curious about that. I know everywhere on the internet says not to do it, and like I said, because of the carbon in the valves, yada, yada, yada. But the thing that I'm skeptical about that on is that they just say it. There's, you know, I haven't seen anywhere that, you know, says, you know, don't run detergent oil in an air compressor because of XYZ, and here's like a study on it or whatever. It's just an article somewhere that says don't do it and doesn't really give an explanation as to why and what have you, thoroughly enough to satisfy my curiosity. And so I'm just going to try it and see how she goes. But yeah, so I'll get that Quincy warmed up and then change the filter on it, cut open the filter, and we'll see what the filter and the oil condition looks like now. So I just ran this thing for about 30 minutes, wide open. And it's about normal for what the oil looks like when I change it on this thing. The oil runs very clean on this. But, you know, cylinder head temperatures in the 250 range, you know, that's not anything crazy. See in the shadow here, it's, yeah, about 60-some degrees. So it's not a scorching hot day, but I wouldn't say that that's like, you know, excessively high temperatures on this thing. The oil pressure when it's at idle is about 15 psi. That's what's normal for this thing. But as the compressor warms up and gets hot, the pressure fluctuates. And you can see it doing it a little bit there. I've called a couple people about that, and unfortunately haven't gotten a straight answer on if that's normal or not. And curious to see what it does with running this engine oil in here. What I have been running in this compressor has been Royal Purple Recip 100 air compressor oil. And I did do a little homework last night, and to, you know, see if I could be as informed about switching this over to engine oil as much as possible. The Recip 100 at 40 degrees Celsius has a viscosity of about 100 centistokes. I forget exactly what it is, but it's roughly 100 centistoke at 40 Celsius. The Shell 1540, the T6 1540, is right there in the same ballpark. So the oil viscosity is almost exactly the same. Although that being said, the Shell oil, I've added Lucas zinc, like break-in additive to it, because that's what I do in like all my engines and what have you. This compressor has had the Royal Purple Recip 100 effectively since brand new. I think I ran the oil that it came with, like from the factory, for the first maybe 20 hours or something like that, and changed it. But for the last, now that I think about it, for the last 10 years, I've been running Recip 100 and the Baldwin 474 filter. Currently, the hour meter says 97 hours and 25 minutes. Unfortunately, that's not the original hour meter. The original hour meter died, and I also did not have an hour meter on this from day one. It's actually got about 500 hours on it or something like that. So this one is electric start with also the pull start. I was watching a video online. A guy took the recoil off, and one of these air-cooled engines ran substantially cooler. I didn't want to have the recoil off completely, but I actually took a damaged recoil that I had and just like skeletonized it and cut giant holes in it. And I've actually noticed that the engine does in fact run cooler. And I haven't used the recoil start on this thing in many years, because it's got electric start. I do carry the recoil with me in case the starter motor fails, but I've been very happy with that right there. So I'll spin the oil filter off, take it inside, cut it open, and see what it looks like. So nice and clean behind the oil filter there. Nice bright aluminum, nothing scary. And the oil filter. And that's what it looks like behind the magnet. That's been very normal for this thing. Nothing surprising there. Fuck, did I write? Unfortunately, because the thing sits outside, when I write the hours and shit on the filter, it just fades away and you can't see it anymore. But if I were to guess, I think that was about 70 hours or something. And I mean, you can see the oil is nice and clean and what have you. It didn't need an oil change. I was just really wanting to try the engine oil and see what happens. Got it really. I'll cut that open. The compressor does have a oil inlet screen in it, and I took that out on the last oil change, and there really wasn't anything to speak of in there, so I'm not going to do that this time. But there's a couple little things here and there. Oh yeah, there you go. Kind of in the middle of the screen there's a little something, but I don't think anything to freak out about. And my reason for wanting to try the engine oil is out of curiosity, but also it's cheaper and easier for me to get. Um, and it would just kind of make life simpler if more things took the same oil. Um, on the other hand, I don't want to be stupid and cost myself a bunch of money, but you know, like I've already explained, I think it should be fine. But of course, we're going to find out here one way or another. And and see how it goes. Also, on one hand, there's something to be said for finding something you like and just sticking with it and not changing. On the other hand, if you don't change things, then maybe you don't find something. Then if you never try, you know, a different oil or whatever, then um, you will just be like stuck in the one thing, and maybe something else is even better yet. Um, and it's a you know, insignificant thing, but it does frustrate me that the Royal Purple oil is pigmented so dark in color, because it makes it a little hard to tell through the sight glass what the condition of the oil looks like. Whereas the Shell oil is much more clear, and so you can get a better idea of the condition. But uh, I'm actually going to run that compressor only until 100 hours on the hour meter. So what? Fuck, 2.5 hours, and change the oil again, and again cut open the oil filter and shit and see what it looks like, and see how she goes.